Hi, I am Pratap. Today we will discuss free radicals pharmacology. So what is a free radical? To know that, let us see in this figure. There is, in the left side, there is an atom. In its outermost orbit there are 7 electrons. So 3 pairs of electrons are there and 1 is unpaired. On the right side we have all pairs of electrons, 4 pairs of electrons. So when the electrons are paired in the outermost orbit, then it is called a stable atom, and when there is unpaired electron in the outermost orbit, then it is called a free radical, and that unpaired electron makes it highly reactive. So a free radical is a molecule or molecular fragment with unpaired electron in outermost orbit of its atom or atomic orbital or molecular orbital. Just see this example. Oxygen is a stable atom because the two atoms which combine to form the oxygen molecule, both the atoms, they share 2 electrons. So there is a sharing of 4 electrons, and both the atoms have 4 pairs of electrons in their outermost orbit. So 8 electrons are there and it is stable. When this oxygen receives 1 electron, then 1 electron becomes unpaired in one of the orbital of the atom, and now this becomes a free radical. So oxygen, when 1 electron is added to it, it becomes superoxide, a free radical. So there are a number of free radical generators: ionizing radiations, UV light, air pollution, smoking, alcohol, inflammation or injury, and metabolism. So we can group them. And metabolism, during generation of ATP in mitochondria, in aerobic respiration called oxidative phosphorylation, there can be leakage of electrons which can activate the oxygen, forming superoxide free radical, which can further generate more radicals. Then the flavoproteins, flavin adenine dinucleotide, flavin mononucleotide, the enzymes, xanthine oxidase, NADPH oxidase, cytochrome P450 oxidase, and all these, they can generate superoxide. Several oxidases, they can generate hydrogen peroxide. Transition metals, they can generate the free radicals. Organic compounds like quinones can also generate. Polyunsaturated fatty acids like arachidonic acid, linoleic acid, they act as oxidative markers. So all these are the endogenous source of free radicals in our body. So we know the carbohydrates are digested to the simplest form, glucose, and glucose is the source of ATP, and one glucose molecule can produce 38 ATP theoretically it may be less. So 34 to 38 ATP is produced from one glucose molecule. Similarly, proteins catabolism leads to amino acids and fat catabolism leads to fatty acids. Glucose, amino acids and fatty acids can be converted to acetyl coenzyme A, and acetyl coenzyme A undergoes Krebs cycle. And if we see how these ATP are produced, we can see the glucose is a 6 carbon molecule, pyruvate is a 3 carbon molecule, and from one glucose 2 pyruvate molecules are produced, and this process is called glycolysis, in which 2 ATP is produced and 2 NADH, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, is produced. Then pyruvate is converted to acetyl coenzyme A. Here 1 NADH is produced, and acetyl coenzyme is a 2 carbon molecule. So acetyl coenzyme A undergoes Krebs cycle, and there is production of 1 GTP, which is equivalent to your 1 ATP, 3 NADH and 1 FADH2, flavin adenine dinucleotide, from one acetyl coenzyme molecule. So since there are 2 pyruvates, so we can multiply it with 2. So total 2 ATP is produced during glycolysis, 2 ATP is produced during Krebs cycle, and here in this table we have shown 36 ATP is produced. That means the rest 32 ATP is produced from NADH and FADH2 by means of electron transport chain. So this electron transport chain is a chain of complexes which transfer electron. That means electron is generated from NADH and FADH2. So NADH and FADH2 are the electron donors. They transfer the electron, which passes through the complexes of electron transport chain and ultimately reaches oxygen, and oxygen then in presence of hydrogen is converted to water. So if we write the equation for aerobic respiration, that is respiration in presence of oxygen, glucose is oxidized to carbon dioxide and oxygen is reduced to water, and there is production of ATP. And here the oxygen is reduced to water in presence of proton and electron, and these electrons are donated by NADH and FADH2, and the process is called oxidative phosphorylation, where ADP is phosphorylated to ATP, and for that phosphorylation the enzyme required is ATP synthase, and to work the enzyme needs some energy, and that energy is provided by hydrogen concentration gradient. So how all this process is carried out, let us first understand that. And it occurs inside a mitochondrion. So up to glycolysis, that is conversion of glucose to pyruvic acid, it occurs in the cytoplasm. Then this pyruvic acid enters into the mitochondrion, and this mitochondrion, if you see the structure, it has an outer membrane, then inside there is an inner membrane, and the space between the outer membrane and inner membrane is called intermembrane space, and inside the inner membrane there is matrix. So So the ATP is produced from pyruvic acid in the mitochondrion, and the process is called oxidative phosphorylation or electron transport chain, and there are some side products also, and they are called free radicals. Now let us see this figure. So the electron transport chain is a collection of 4 complexes and 2 more enzymes or proteins. So the 4 complexes are complex 1, complex 2, complex 3 and complex 4, and 2 others are coenzyme Q just above the complex 2 and cytochrome C. So this is the total complex of electron transport chain. Complex 1, complex 3 and complex 4 are the proton pumps. So they can pump proton from mitochondrial matrix to intermembrane space. Now we know NADH and FADH2 are the electron donors. NADH donates its electron to complex 1. FADH2 donates its electron to complex 2. Now complex 1 and complex 2 accept the electron and they can now donate to coenzyme Q. Then coenzyme Q transfers its electron to complex 3. Complex 3 transfers the electron to cytochrome C, and cytochrome C transfers the electron to complex 4. From complex 4 the electron now moves to oxygen, and oxygen is the ultimate acceptor of electron. So this electron is transferred through this pathway and ultimately oxygen gets it, and in presence of hydrogen it is converted to water. So how this hydrogen is obtained? First, the hydrogen present in mitochondrial matrix is pumped to the intermembrane space during this electron transfer. So when electron is donated by NADH to complex 1, that means there is simultaneous transfer of proton from the mitochondrial matrix to the intermembrane space, and complex 1, complex 3, complex 4, these 3 act as proton pump and they pump proton to the intermembrane space during the electron transfer. And now the proton concentration in intermembrane space increases and creates a concentration gradient. So there is another complex called ATP synthase. The blue color one in this figure called ATP synthase. Some call it as complex 5 of the electron transport chain, and this ATP synthase has a channel for protons. So when the concentration gradient is created, proton moves from the intermembrane space to the mitochondrial matrix, and that concentration gradient acts as the energy source for ATP synthase to phosphorylate ADP to ATP. So there are 3 things. First thing, there is electron transfer. Second thing, there is generation of proton concentration gradient. Third thing, due to concentration gradient, the energy will be utilized for phosphorylation of ADP to ATP by ATP synthase. However, the complex 1 and complex 3 can act as a location for leakage of electrons. Only 3% of leakage occurs. That means those 3% of electrons do not pass through the electron transport chain and they are leaked directly into the matrix, and in the matrix that electron is received by oxygen and there is no hydrogen. So what happens? Oxygen receives the electron and becomes superoxide, which is a free radical. So due to leakage during oxidative phosphorylation from complex 1 and complex 3, there is generation of free radicals. So oxidative phosphorylation is there to convert oxygen to water, simultaneously to produce ATP. But if early leakage of electron occurs from complex 1 and complex 3, then that will act with oxygen to form superoxide radical. Then this superoxide radical can further generate more and more radicals through Fenton reaction. Your first superoxide is converted to hydrogen peroxide. Through Fenton reaction, hydrogen peroxide in presence of iron can generate hydroxy radical. Through Haber-Weiss reaction, superoxide and hydrogen peroxide can generate hydroxy radical. So a number of radicals can be generated. But again, there is a defense mechanism in our body. When these free radicals are generated, to neutralize those free radicals, there is a mechanism also. And superoxide is converted to hydrogen peroxide by the enzyme superoxide dismutase, and hydrogen peroxide then is converted to water by the enzyme catalase. However, there can be generation of more radicals. Suppose in presence of nitric oxide, more nitrogen species are produced, called reactive nitrogen species. Similarly, in presence of myeloperoxidase and chlorine, there can be production of reactive chlorine species like hypochlorous acid. There can also be production of reactive sulfur species, reactive carbon species, and all these reactive species can be divided into two groups, radicals and non-radicals. All the radicals have one unpaired electron in their outermost orbital, atomic or molecular orbital. One unpaired electron is there, and non-radicals means there is no unpaired electron, and they have oxidizing potential. They can generate radicals. So the non-radicals are also considered as reactive species. So here we have given some examples of all these reactive oxygen species, reactive nitrogen species, reactive sulfur species, reactive carbon species, reactive chlorine species. So when these free radicals are increased, or when the defense mechanism of antioxidants decrease, that leads to a condition. That condition is called oxidative stress. So that oxidative stress leads to lipid, protein, nucleic acid, all damage. So lipid peroxidation, protein oxidation, nucleic acid degradation, all these things occur. So reactive oxygen species are not only generated by the mitochondrial electron transport pathway, but also by other pathways which we have discussed earlier. Here in this figure there is some enzymes like xanthine oxidase, NADPH oxidase, cyclooxygenase, they can generate superoxide. And you can see here superoxide, by the action of superoxide dismutase, hydrogen peroxide is formed, and hydrogen peroxide then through catalase and glutathione peroxidase can be converted to water. So these three are antioxidant mechanisms: SOD, catalase, glutathione peroxidase. These are all antioxidant mechanisms. But in presence of other radicals or non-radicals, there is generation of more and more free radicals, causing lipid peroxidation, DNA damage, and oxidation of proteins. So in this way, these reactive oxygen species or all the reactive species are harmful to our bodies. So these free radicals can damage almost all organs of our body, causing many diseases, starting from neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, arthritis, etc. So oxidative stress through lipid peroxidation and protein oxidation can cause neural cell death and can cause neurodegeneration, whereas through DNA damage and mutation can cause cancer. Oxidative stress can cause neuroinflammation, synapse loss, glial cell activation, protein misfolding, thereby causing apoptosis, neurodegeneration, and all the neurodegenerative diseases. Oxidative stress also can cause DNA damage, DNA mutation, altered gene expression, and all these lead to carcinogenesis or cancer. Again, the reactive oxygen species are involved in many cardiovascular diseases due to endothelial dysfunction. Reactive oxygen species can destroy the pancreatic beta cells, can cause beta cell dysfunction, can cause insulin resistance, and in diabetes there is hyperglycemia, and that glucose can generate advanced glycation end products which are very harmful. So these advanced glycation end products, once generated, they can not only cause diabetes but also can cause many other diseases like cardiovascular diseases, neurodegenerative diseases, kidney diseases. These advanced glycation end products also are cause of diabetes associated complications like diabetic nephropathy, diabetic vascular complications. So oxidative stress along with advanced glycation end products are a major cause of diabetes and diabetes associated complications. These free radicals can also cause cataract. The oxidative stress is associated with inflammation, and here there is an example how oxidative stress can cause an inflammatory disorder called IBD, inflammatory bowel disorder. Oxidative stress can also cause chronic kidney disease where the renal function decreases. So to protect or prevent from oxidative stress, there are several defense mechanisms which are endogenous and some exogenous antioxidants also we can use. So the protective barrier of entry of reactive oxygen species, our skin cell can act as the protective barrier. We can prevent the generation of reactive oxygen species using metal chelators like transferrin, ferritin, lactoferrin, and we can use DNA repair enzymes. Once there is tissue damage, we can use single nucleotide polymorphism to repair the DNA, and we can use antioxidants which may be endogenous or exogenous, water soluble or lipid soluble, enzymatic or non-enzymatic, and based on their location also we can classify antioxidants. So the antioxidants are the molecules which prevent oxidative stress and which can prevent the oxidative stress induced lipid peroxidation, nucleic acid damage, and protein oxidation. So how antioxidants work? All the antioxidants are the free radical scavengers. They convert a free radical into a stable molecule. A free radical is having one unpaired electron in its outermost orbit, and the antioxidants supply one electron so that the unpaired electron in the free radical becomes paired and becomes stable. In this way the antioxidants work. So here some examples of water soluble antioxidants, lipid soluble antioxidants, plasma antioxidants, cell membrane antioxidants, intracellular antioxidants based on their location. So in this way we can classify antioxidants. We can also classify antioxidants as enzymatic and non-enzymatic. Among the non-enzymatic nutrients and non-nutrients we can further classify. Here are some examples. We can also classify antioxidants as exogenous and endogenous. In the endogenous we have enzymes and non-enzymes or metabolites like glutathione, cysteine, thioredoxin, and we can have metal binding proteins which are endogenous like ferritin, ceruloplasmin, and the exogenous antioxidants can further be classified as dietary like your tocopherol, carotenoid, beta carotene, ascorbic acid. The phytochemicals like bioflavonoids, polyphenols, catechin, etc. Trace elements like selenium, zinc, manganese. Plants like Azadirachta indica, Bacopa munieri, Emblica officinalis, Glycyrrhizia glabra, Syzygium cumuni. Fish oil containing omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids like eicosa pentanoic acid, docosa hexanoic acid, alpha linoleic acid. So the free radicals can be neutralized by the antioxidants, and which free radical can be neutralized by which antioxidant. This is a table to show the specific antioxidant for specific radical or non-radical. Then specific antioxidant for a specific disease. Here are some examples. For example, in neurodegenerative disorders, vitamin E is useful. In gastric cancer, vitamin E, beta carotene, selenium is useful. In prostate cancer, vitamin E is useful. In diabetes, vitamin E and vitamin C are useful. In cardiovascular diseases, vitamin E, vitamin C, vitamin A, flavonoids all are useful. In myocardial infarction, there is beta carotene. In cataract, vitamin E is useful. In immune disorders, vitamin C is useful. So some examples are given here, which antioxidant can be used against which disease. So we have covered what are the free radicals, how they are generated. We have discussed about oxidative phosphorylation, how oxidative phosphorylation is a cause of generation of free radicals. Then how free radicals cause different diseases in our body, and what are the antioxidants, all the classification of antioxidants, and how these antioxidants work in different diseases, and how they act as antioxidant. All these things we have studied today. I think this will be useful to all of you. Thank you.